live, pending hopefully no technical difficulties. But anyways, hello everybody. I'm Emily, developer advocate for Linea. If you haven't been into one of these sessions before, this is episode 3 of our developer workshop series. So specifically going over the tools and developer infrastructure that have integrated with Linea and the really cool things that you can build with it. So today we have Michael from Celer. Michael, do you want to introduce yourself?
Hey everyone, this is Michael from Celer. Sorry, my cam isn't quite working. I've used the backup camera, and thanks for the invitation by Linea, and thanks Emily for hosting this. And today, I'm very happy to be here to share some of our work that we did within the cross-chain interaction field. And I just want to share our SDK, how you can be how you're able to just write smart contracts and also integrate with our SDK so that you can build this one-click multi-chain application, and specifically for say between linear and other blockchains, other layers. So that would be very excited.
Yeah. No, it's really cool. Number one, no worries about the backup camera. Your side profile is amazing. The slope of your nose is very smooth. But then, yeah, the other piece is I think a lot when I talk to my friends who actually also work on other layer twos, also surprise, I'm friends with the the other shades. I think our thesis is always what do you call it? Cross-chain infrastructure are gonna be the real winners in the space. Not the L2s. We're gonna fade into the background, but you guys are the real powerhouses. But anyways, I think circling back, let's actually just start off with a very simple question. What
Mhm.
is Celer and what do you enable? I guess maybe twofold because you guys also have your own bridge, right? So
Mhm.
what does Celer enable users to do and what does Celer enable developers to do?
Sure. Yeah. So we're actually a blockchain interoperability protocol, we say, and so basically yeah, as you said, we have sort of both a product, which is the cBridge, what we call, and it's both for fungible tokens and for NFTs. And I can actually switch to the UI a little bit. Yeah, so this is actually a testnet view of the cBridge interface, and as you can see, we offer a transfer interface for fungible tokens and also a tab for NFTs. Which yeah, we don't actually have NFT bridging for Linea yet, but it's you can always build one, and we can probably add it to the UI. And yeah, so basically that is the product part of our stack, and all of this is built on our SDK, so that's more for the developer facing side of our product. And so the SDK is for developers to just build one-click user experience for any sort of blockchain application, be it DeFi, GameFi, NFTs, or if you have a governance part of a protocol that say, so for example, you have governance tokens on multiple chains, and you kind of want users to be able to vote on any of the chains, then you can use our SDK to build this cross-chain governance framework for users to participate in the governance process. So yeah, all of that is enabled by our like uh, SDK, and you're able to just build what we call interchain native dApps with our interchain messaging SDK. So yeah, it's kind of mouthful, but it is what our product and SDK, the two parts are focused on.
I see. Okay, this is actually because you mentioned NFT bridging, kind of a question for myself. How does NFT bridging exactly work?
hmm So yeah, it's interesting because if you think of tokens, right? So essentially, how there are actually two ways of how you can bridge fungible tokens. And I'll get into the details later when I get to the technical part. So that's how our fungible tokens work. But for NFTs, if you sum it up, it's just you have the original NFT, for example, on Ethereum, and you have people trading on OpenSea or whatever, and then you can have this mirrored NFT that gets minted on the I'll say linear, right? And whenever you like lock your original NFT on a contract, on a smart contract on Ethereum, and like we as like a interchain protocol, we just like we monitor that you've already like locked this NFT with us, then like we can like mint the corresponding we call like mirror or like a pegged NFT on linear on another chain. So that's like essentially how it works. Basically, you have this like copy that follows the original, where like the original gets locked, and you have this like the copy gets circulated on the other chain, and it works the other way around as well. So like you have the copy that gets burned, whatever, just like temporarily destroyed on the other chain, and then your original is like freed on Ethereum. So that's like just simply how like this NFT bridging thing works. So
I see.
yep.
Okay.
Hmm.
Okay, so I guess like for people trying like getting inspired by Celer, I guess two questions. Like, can you tell us about like popular use cases or like applications that Celer has powered before?
Hmm. Yeah,
Uh,
definitely. So yeah, obviously, like the most straightforward use case of our interchain protocol is just the cBridge, which is like a product that's built on top of the SDK. So we've operated this like a non-custodial and decentralized asset bridge, and we support, I believe, like over like close to I think like about like 200 different fungible tokens, and across about 40 different blockchains, and including like blockchains and layer twos like linear. So we consider all of them are like different chains and layers. So I think we've processed about, I think last time I checked, like close to 15 billion total, like $15 billion in terms of like total cross-chain asset transfer volume, and we're supporting it in close to like 500K unique users. So I think we've done quite a lot of like support for like all the users interchain uh, needs. So yeah, and I think that is like our flagship like product. And on top of that, we also have the interchain messaging systems, and not just like for fungible tokens, but also for like any sorts of like generic messaging. So we have supported the cross-chain yield farming with PancakeSwap, which is like a very popular
mm,
DEX on the in the EVM ecosystem. And we also did a very interesting use case for a project called Tofu NFT, which is like a cross-chain like NFT bidding and purchasing. So like the users can actually submit like bidding for a particular NFT, say on Ethereum from like another chain, so they don't have to like actually spend gas on Ethereum to just like bid for the NFT. So like the process can be like much cheaper for users when they do like cross chain NFT bidding. So yeah, that is like something like a very like comprehensive like use case for like that kind of like combines like NFT bridging and also like the interchain messaging for like generic messaging to support that use case. And yeah, we have like other like I guess smaller projects, and also like we're not just building on EVM, the EVM ecosystem, we're also like expanding to other like non-EVM ecosystems. So yeah, that's like our vision to just like build this interchain, like one-click interchain operating system for every user to be able to like use any DApp on any blockchain.
I see. I see.
Hmm.
That's very cool. I guess like, kind of my question when I think about like cross-chain infrastructure,
Hmm.
where does the decision come in when like integrating a new chain? Is it just like, yeah, there's a new one, let's like bring it in, or
Hmm. Yeah,
because it
I
feels like
think
there's a lot that's coming
yeah,
through.
I think that's more like the business style, like our marketing and business team, developer team, like kind of like when they like when the new chain pops up, they'll obviously like evaluate their, say for example, like the technical, like obviously first off, like the technical foundation has to be kind of like solid. For example, like linear is like one of the we consider it's like a very solid project, technology wise, it's like very solid project. And in terms of like a user, in terms of like market, it's like a very, I guess we kind of like evaluate, say, for example, like how many users are potentially going to use that chain, like how many projects, how many developers going to like potentially build on that chain. So like all those metrics kind of evaluate, and then we decide. Obviously, we're not going to like integrate with any like new chain that pops up. There are still like many, even though like the market isn't that like very ideal, there's still like a lot of new projects, new chains popping up every single day. We're not going to like integrate with every single one of them. So there are like different dimensions, metrics we kind of like evaluate when we look at new chain. And I think obviously like Linear is one of like the flagship projects we call. So yeah, and we're very happy, like very eager to kind of support like Linear.
Yeah, thank you. No,
Mm-hmm.
I'm excited. Actually, we have a question from the community.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
So here's this question. Can you talk about solutions problems related to the development of multi-chain dApps, specifically security and scalability issues?
Yeah, I think it's a great question. So, like, I guess when like blockchain first came around, it was just like Bitcoin, right? Then like Ethereum came around, which added to incompleteness, like EVM, so you can build like many more interesting stuff on that. But then, like now we fast forward to like say 2019, 2020, we have this like world of multi-chain dApps, and it obviously brings like lots of new challenges in terms of both security and scalability. Well, I think like scalability wise, actually like the multi-chain world is one solution to the like the general scalability problem. Like if you don't have to like if you don't focus on just like Ethereum, if you kind of like broaden your definition of scalability, like by having different side chains and different layers actually help like scalability for Ethereum. So like that people don't have to always compete for the very limited block space on Ethereum. So I think any kinds of like any kind of multi-chain dApp is actually helping with scalability, and obviously like in terms of like development, you have its own scalability issue. You have to have like the deployments on different chains. You have to like managing your like say smart contract and manage you for users. You have to like manage your addresses on different chains. You have to like for example, if you were just interacting with Ethereum, you only have to worry about like your ether balance, right? But then like if you also have to like interact with say BNB chain, whatever, like you have say like tenfold more complexity as a user. So that's like I consider that as also like a part of a
Mm.
scalability issue, not just for a developer but also for user. And for security, obviously, like when you enter a multi-chain world, you have this like how do you verify a transaction that happened on another chain? And this is like the very core of like any cross-chain like bridging or like cross-chain interoperability protocol. You have to like ensure that you don't get fooled by some like fake transaction, some like fabricated transaction on another chain. You have to build this like very complicated and very like comprehensive sort of like monitoring framework for that kind of issues. So yeah, we tackle both like security and scalability when we build cBridge and we build the Celer like messaging Interchain Messaging SDK. We obviously have to like solve a lot of those issues in our development. Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's a really good point. I like that you brought up the like scalability in
Mm-hmm.
terms of I'm gonna call it scalability of the mind, like being
Yeah,
able to manage
yeah.
all of that. That's really interesting. I guess
Yeah,
this
it's
is
like your attention span has to like 10x for if you're
yeah,
like
yeah,
interacting with like linear like BNB like polygon whatever like it's very easy for users to like lose track.
yeah,
I think
yeah.
like MetaMask has improved a lot in terms of like multi-chain support. It wasn't as good. I think back in like 2019, 2020, it wasn't as good, and there were like lots of like sources of confusion. For example, like one token can have like a different. Obviously, like a token is going to have different addresses on different chains, but then like there were confusions. For example, like sometimes when you switch between like Binance Chain and Ether, it still show like the BNB token as ETH on the BNB chain in terms of
Mm,
yeah. So there were like just little bugs here and there for like multi-chain support, but I think it has came a long way from that. Like I'm talking about like MetaMask. So yeah,
yeah.
and yeah, all the wallets, like all the say like block explorer, like all the infrastructure, all the developer tool chains, they all have to address this like multi-chain issue. And so yeah, I would consider that like a some kind of like scalability issue on its own. So,
Yeah,
yep.
that's interesting. This is kind of maybe a question for you personally, since you
Hmm.
brought that up. What are your thoughts on, like, do you think that will change in the future? Like, everyone will just transact in their own currency, right? Like, I guess with the power of like maybe interchain applications, it's like I'll just be trading in like USDC, or
Hmm.
somebody will be like doing the euro.
Hmm.
And then in the background, you're handling all the like, oh, this is actually Linea, this is actually blah, blah, blah. But for a user, the only
Hmm.
thing they need to keep track of is like their actual wallet or their account
Hmm.
balance that is also maps to whatever is in their local currency.
Yeah, I do think that's like is going to be a very ideal situation, especially with newer like developments like account abstraction, for example, plus
Right.
like this like interchain messaging. We don't have a standard yet. We don't have like interchain standards, unlike like say for example the Cosmos world, they have like IBC like or ICS 20, those like interchain standard. But like in the EVM world, we don't have a standard yet. But with like a combination of account abstraction and like interchain messaging, I think we'll be able to achieve what you talk about. Like people shouldn't worry too much about like their like different gas on different chains and different layers, and they don't have to if, essentially like, the bridging interface should be very minimal and even like intangible for users, right? They don't have to like I guess like keep interacting with bridge UIs, and everything should just like happen under the hood, and for them to be able to just like use any application on any chain. So yeah, that would be like very ideal. But I think we're still a few years from that, but we're working towards that.
Okay. Yeah, very cool. So I'm going to
Yeah.
wrap up the introduction part about Celer so we can get to building with like one last question. Um, so like obviously this is for our developers on Linea, whether it be like, I guess, developers on their own time or like hackers at hackathons. Do you have like a dream DApp on Celer, or like inspiration ideas for the people leveraging your product?
Hmm. That's a good question. So, like, I guess I think, and I guess like a cross chain like portal thing would be very useful. We do have like, I mean, we see a bunch. There are like bunch of like portfolio management dApps out there. For example, for people to just like view their balances on different chains, and I think it's already quite useful. But if like that kind of portal can like say interact with interchain messaging, like that you're able to just like within that portal to be able to like manage your like assets on different chains, and like you, for example, like view NFTs, like view like new MT projects on different chains and be able to like purchase them. I think that would be quite useful. So like it's kind of like a one-stop like hub for it's kind of like a uh, how should I say? It's kind of, for example, like when I use Robinhood, for example, in TradFi, you have like access to different kind of products, like whether it be, for example, stocks or like futures, options, whatever. Like you all built in this like one place. I think it would be quite useful in not just like viewing your balances, but also like interact with different. Like assets, the different protocols on different chains, all like managed by this like hub. That would be quite useful. Yeah, I think it will be quite kind of complicated to build, but it should be doable. Yeah.
Oh,
Hmm.
okay. I guess this is kind of inspiring another question.
Hmm.
Do you see like it feels sometimes maybe like cross-chain infrastructure is more suitable for things like DeFi, right? Because I think when we talk about gaming, for
Hmm.
example,
Hmm.
that I think, correct me if I'm wrong. It feels like the narrative for gaming like sits more around like app chains and just like specific
Hmm.
ecosystems, and like the
Hmm.
cross-chain part of it is not as important as compared to use
Yeah,
cases
I would
like
say they
DeFi.
have like different focuses. I would say, yeah, for DeFi, it's more like natural because you're more like, how should I say, it's like asset centric. So like for when you talk about USDC, obviously, like they're doing like CCTP on their own. So like it's more like asset centric. But yeah, for games, it's more like application centric, and like games tend to kind of have like trying to build out their own ecosystem centered around their the game itself, right? And then it's very natural for them to kind of like just fork EVM, have their own chain, like have everyone interacting with that particular application specific chain. So yeah, that is like obviously a very kind of like obvious distinction between the two. But I think for games, they also like we've worked with like lots of GameFi projects, and I think the most common use case is for their like token to be able to like trade on the DEX on a larger DEX. For example, like I think there are some like GameFis that are based on like, for example, the Binance like application smart chain thing, and then like their tokens still want to be traded on PancakeSwap, for example, and they came to us and asked like, can you bridge our token to like the main like a BNB chain, the BSC chain, so that their tokens can be traded on PancakeSwap. And so yeah, for games, I think it's more limited to their like own like tokens to be able to like bridge back forward. And yeah, I think, but for DeFi, it's more, I guess, we've seen like more comprehensive, more like complicated like interchain dApps that build around the DeFi. For example, like cross-chain lending and cross-chain, cross-chain DEX, or like yeah, cross-chain swap. Like you issue a buy order from one chain, and then you get the token back via like all the back and forth. We handle it for you. So yeah, I think that's a very great observation. But I think like I mean the the GameFi is kind of like a even like newer field than DeFi, right? So maybe like newer like cross-chain games will pop up, and it'll be cool like if someone has a great idea of like how a cross-chain game should look like and build one of those. Mm-hmm.
I see. Okay, so we have another question from the audience. Wow, you're so popular. Cool. How can you use SDK tools? I mean, I guess this is probably going into our next, like your
Mm-hmm.
presentation, or I mean, you can talk about it and then we can go into your demo.
Yeah, I think this will be covered by my presentation, and but I think it's interesting that you mentioned the microservice architectures and how to provide them for organizations. Yeah, I think it's definitely feasible, but I mean, the entire like blockchain space is kind of new, right? So, and for like organizations, we're still kind of like a little bit far away, I say, for like if this is more like if we were to like operate as more like a 2B business, right? For example, we kind of like tailor this like entire like have this like entire tailored interchain messaging solution for like some organization. I think that would be possible, but for now we're still like more facing the retail, like for the like the retail users to be able to interact with the blockchain. Yeah, as opposed to like organizations or businesses. But yeah, I think that's a good future to be living. So yeah.
Okay, very cool.
Hmm.
So if you, I know you set up some slides. If you wanna,
Hmm.
I'll let you take it away from here.
Hmm. All right. Yeah. Then I'll switch to the few slides I prepared. Yeah, so the topic for today's presentation is build one-click UX multi-chain dApps on Linear, and so we have actually like two parts of the SDK. So we have the cBridge SDK, which is more focused on the fungible token bridging, and we have the more generic Interchain Messaging SDK for like any other applications that you want to build. And first off, like I guess a little bit like another round of introduction of what cBridge is. So, and this is like more on the more technical side of things. So the entire cBridge is based on this thing called SGN, which is the we'll call State Guardian Network. So basically, it is a independent some like application specific chain that is like the application will be cross-chain interaction, like cross-chain transaction. So it's just like application specific relay chain that's built on the Cosmos Tendermint consensus, and we use the Celer token as the staking token. So users can stake Celer token on Ethereum, and then it gets reflected on the SGN to kind of represent the stake they voted for a particular validator, and then we have to like the network has to like achieve the like 2/3 majority for any like event to be processed. So that is like where the security comes from. And Emily mentioned like how does like token bridging work. So we do have two modes of operation for token bridging. So the first one will be what we call liquidity-based bridge. So, for example, for tokens with higher market cap, for example, USDC, USDT, and Ether, like they're operated more often in the liquidity pool based model. So basically, you have this different versions of the same token on different chains, and then we set up a AMM kind of structure on cBridge, and then users can provide liquidity on different chains, and then you can people can move liquidity around by sending bridge requests. So that's like the liquidity pool based operation mode. And for I think for the majority of tokens which are of like smaller market cap, we actually do this like second mode of operation, which is one-to-one peg bridge. So basically, it's kind of similar to the NFT bridge I talk about. So basically, you like lock this like original token on one chain, and then the SGN mints like a peg token on a mirror token on the other chain. So that way you can maintain this like one-to-one peg mapping between the original token and the minted token. So that it's like everything is like secure. You don't have like you don't just like mint out of nowhere, or you don't like burn without checking where the original token went. So this is like our second mode of operation. And then we have this like what we call Celer IM, which is the generalized interchain messaging framework. And we connect to many EVM chains, and including obviously Linea, which is a very flagship like layer 2, and we're also expanding to non-EVM chains. Yep. So this slide is more of like an architectural view of how this entire thing works. So you have like the user via your cross-chain application. You submit a cross-chain like say transfer request, and then we like the SGN process all that and like validates that a cross-chain request has happened on the source chain, and then issues a like signature of all the validators on the destination chain, and then the cBridge contract on the destination on the destination chain is gonna like validate all those validator signatures and like release the assets on the destination chain. So that's like a like 30,000 20,000 like view of how this like entire thing works. Yep. So that this slide like mentions the two bridging modes I just talked about. And for the liquidity pool based model, you can actually like we offer like liquidity providers some like seller incentives so that people can deposit their assets on the liquidity pools and earn like both the transaction fee, both the cross-chain transaction fee and also the liquidity incentives. Okay, so let's get into some of the links. So we have this like cBridge SDK, which is more focused on the fungible token side of things. So I'll just share it. Yep. So here's the doc link for the cBridge SDK, and it's we have like instructions for you to install it. And it's based on TypeScript, JavaScript. So like it should match like most of the tech stack people use. And you can use either gRPC, which is like a more advanced API, or you can use like the traditional like REST API for interacting with it. And we provide like some example for you to just like get started. And these are the two modes of transfer and how they operate. And X liquidity is the pool-based liquidity pool-based model, and X asset is just the lock and mint model, like the one-to-one like lock and mint model. And we have like SDK methods to integrate with either of those models. And here we have a example to like how you're gonna send like a cross-chain transfer via the cBridge SDK. Yeah, I won't get into too much of the details, but the doc is quite clear how you're able to like send a cross-chain transfer, and you can definitely try it out. And here as well, like how you interact with the second mode of operation. I think this one will be more relevant to linear, just because we don't yet have the pool-based mode for linear yet, and obviously like linear isn't on mainnet yet, so everything's on testnet. And but you can already, I think you can already interact with the pool, the canonical token, or the like pack. Yeah, sorry, we have like multiple terms for the same thing, but this is like the one-on-one like pack model for like cross-chain transfers, and you can already interact with that on linear. All right, and yep, and finally we have this like interchain messaging framework, which is the most like generalized version of cross-chain interaction. So not just for fungible tokens, but also for NFTs. And we can go back to the okay, so go back to our UI, and this like NFT tab is actually based on this like interchain messaging framework, and you can have like select your NFT. We don't have any on testnet yet, but yeah, you can build something like akin to this kind of application with the interchain messaging framework. So yeah, this is like a pretty daunting diagram, but you don't have to like know the details of everything. But essentially, like it's the same idea as the fungible token transfer. So a user via this like message sender app, which is a smart contract on the source chain, and they're gonna send a cross-chain message request to cBridge, and the SGN, which is the validator network, is going to validate that cross-chain message and issue all their signatures to the destination chain, which is going to deliver that message to the destination like message receiver app on the destination chain. So yeah, even though this is like a huge diagram involving multiple steps, it's actually very straightforward and very easy to understand underneath. Um, and so the interesting thing is that we kind of combine the two, because we think that like most of the time when people like want to send a message, they also want to kind of like attach a phone.
Wait, Michael, can I interrupt you? I feel like your sound went off. Michael. Hello? Can you hear me? Or okay, yeah.
It died.
Or no, I don't know if you like hit your thing and then it went on mute or
What?
something. So,
Yeah.
I think the last thing I heard you say was you when you send messages, you sometimes also want to send,
Oh
and then
yeah.
that was
Oh,
that.
not too bad, not too bad. So I died for like minutes. Not too bad. Okay, yeah. So yeah, what we observe is like people tend to send funds along with their message. For example, imagine you're building this like cross-chain lending app, right? You say the message could be, I want to collateralize my ether on this source chain, and then like receive for example, USDC on the destination chain. And that's actually, I think, if Avi had that kind of functionality, it would be great. Like now I have to like switch between like back and forth, and it's not very convenient. And so with this like messaging with fund transfer for like workflow, you can actually send your ether along with this message, and then like DSG and the cBridge is going to process all that request and send your USDC back along with the receipt of the message. So this is actually very cool. So like you can have like message with fund transfer. And the second flow is just a simpler version of that, like without fund transfer. It's just like a plain like message that like, I mean, just like states your intention, like what you're going to do with that message. And with the on the destination app, is going to like process that message and do like act accordingly. And that's just like a simpler version of the first workflow. Yep. And so we have kind of like a separate SDK for this interchain messaging framework, and we have this like a separate doc site for like that walks through all the architecture, and we have you can skip all that, and you can just go into like the developer guide and look at one of the examples. Yeah, and it's so this is like what a message sending and receiving app contract would look like. And we also have an example, a more complicated example with the sending a funds along with your message. So we have example for both. And we also have a very a simple like sample. So basically this is a what we call like a batch transfer. So if you want to transfer to multiple like receivers on destination chain, and like cBridge, because cBridge only kind of allows like one recipient on destination chain for a regular cBridge transfer. But with this like a transfer app, which like alleviates this which like leverages this like a Interchain messaging framework, you can actually send to multiple recipients on the destination chain. So this is actually quite powerful. Yeah, and we also have this integration guide, which kind of it's more of like a complete like walkthrough of the entire process. I think it assumes just like a very basic knowledge of like how to like develop a DApp, and kind of goes like step by step how you're gonna like deploy the contracts and like call the call our like backend and to kind of like completing the entire process. It's very comprehensive guide for integration. So yeah, I think that's pretty much the slides I prepared for this. And yeah, obviously we have Discord, and there is a dedicated dev channel on our Discord server, and you can like click on that link and join our Discord server, and either me or like our group of like community developers will be able to will like be active on that server and like answer any question you might have. Yep. So I think that's pretty much it for my presentation, and I'm happy to take any further questions, particularly like technical questions or like any confusions or any concerns about our security model. Like I can take any question.
Yeah, we have a few questions. I don't know if you can see these questions when I bring them on screen. How cost effective is the use of these tools? What possible way can you reduce cost of integration on existing Web3 platforms?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's a good question. So obviously, like with cross-chain apps, there is this like the entire like cost model becomes a little bit more complicated than like, for example, a single chain app. Because for single chain, usually you just like you pay the blockchain, you pay the gas fee, and that's it. And for cross-chain, like it's a little bit more complicated than that. For example, for a cBridge transfer, you kind of have to pay. You still have to like cover the gas cost that validators like pay to relay your like transaction on the destination chain, right? For example, when you go from say Ethereum to say like Linea, you still have to kind of pay that cost for. Even though it's a very low, you still kind of have to cover that cost for transaction on Linea. So that gets reflected whenever you do a cross-chain, for example, USDC transfer, you get a little bit less amount. For example, if you transfer 100 USDC, you only get say like 99.7 on the destination chain, and that difference, most of that goes into covering the gas costs on Linear. So that's, I wouldn't say it's like cost effective, because I mean, just because like we can't like make things, I guess we could like cover some gas for users like in the beginning, but like as we ramp up the application, we still have to, the users still have to pay that part of gas cost. And yeah, there are obviously ways for us to reduce the cost, and like for now we use a like multi-chain multi-sig way of validating transactions, and there are like potential savings if we say for like switch to like the threshold signatures, like more those like more advanced like I guess signature schemes, we might be able to reduce the gas cost when we like validate a cross-chain transaction and when we relay a cross-chain transaction. So those are some like possible future like optimizations we might use. And yeah, but for like developers, I don't think it should incur any extra cost other than like I guess there's like a little bit learning curve of how like of learning how everything works, but I don't think there should be any like additional cost for integrating with us. And we're actually, I think we do have like grant programs for like people to integrate with our SDK. We can do it on a case by case like basis, and we might be able to issue grants. So yep, I think that's my answer.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, there's another question I think similar to it. I'm pretty sure you answered what he just asked, unless you had
Sure.
anything you wanted to add.
Yeah, I think that's already answered.
Right. Okay, cool. Yeah, I guess with regards to like gas costs and cross-chain transfers, kind of my question then is, I know like relayers are common, like sponsoring gas costs, so like not necessarily on the cBridge side, but like on the application side, right? Do you guys
Yeah,
have that functionality built in? How would a developer go around about doing that if they wanted to? I feel like
yeah,
integrating multiple tools together, building their own.
yeah. I think that's a great question. Let me have to. Oh, did I just stop? Never mind. Go back to the slide here. So on both of these diagrams, I don't know how you like highlight those, but there's like this component called executor, which is just the the backend, like the server component that kind of the daemon process, what we call in tech terms, that kind of like executes the cross-chain transfer. So that is the one that actually like pays the gas cost on destination chain. So yeah, if an app wants to like kind of like for example do like a gas fee, like a subsidy or any sort of that, they can just like not charge the user for that part. So like they pay their own gas. And so like typically on the destination, the DApp would charge a little bit of fee. So like we don't have that logic built in. It's completely up to the developer to be able to like assess. They're able to like choose how much fee they're gonna assess for any cross-chain messaging. So yeah, I think it's definitely possible for like a multi-chain DApp to just like charge whatever, or even like don't charge for users at the beginning. So that's also an option. So yeah, I think from a UX perspective, it's definitely great if like a DApp can like subsidize users in terms of gas cost. And I think many projects, they have like a incentive, like they build some kind of like incentivization with their tokens. I think that's definitely like something, an option here, as I would say. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, very cool. So I guess to wrap up, first off, are these slides public? Can I make them available?
Yeah,
There's a lot
definitely.
of helpful
Those
links.
are yeah, those are like all of those are public info, and yeah, I can like share the link offline with you.
Yeah,
You
that
should be
would
able to.
be
Yeah.
super helpful.
Hmm.
Any call to actions for the community, last thoughts you wanted to add? Otherwise, I will close with some various things to say.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah, I would just say like again, like thank you for inviting us to this workshop, and very happy to chat with you. Like great questions from both you and the audience, and yeah, we're eager to see developers, I guess, talking to us like built on Linear, built on Celer. So just welcome and happy hacking.
Yeah, awesome. So I wanted to close with a few things. I noticed, like in the chat, and I think people are always asking, like, gas fees on Linea are
Hmm.
high.
Hmm.
How does this deal with scalability? I think I want to say two things, right? It's actually intentional right now. We put a cap because we don't want to affect real developers. I believe in our NFT voyage, our very first week, Celer was one of our partners, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Bridging.
yeah. It was a
And
kind of hectic week.
it was crazy. Like
Yeah,
like Gurley like went like to like the gas fees on Gurley were insane, right? Which is really problematic because like real
yeah,
developers building
yeah.
use Gurley. So like I think from that point we recognize that like, you know, the purpose of the voyages are to highlight awesome partners like Celer, right? Our
Hmm.
job is to not cause disruption to the external
Right.
Ethereum ecosystem, especially since this is all like testnet, right?
Hmm.
So yeah, if you want to learn more about like why gas fees are high, we actually did talk about it on our community call last week. Let me see if I can find the link. It's at the end. So I want to say, community, do not worry. When we get on mainnet, like once the voyages end, everything should cool down. We'll remove those artificial caps. So yeah, that's just on our YouTube channel. The other piece, and like this is why I was like highlighting hackathon projects and why Michael keeps saying happy hacking. If you don't know, Consensus is hosting a virtual hackathon. So this is open to the public. It's called Not Another Virtual Hackathon. We have $115,000 in prizes. Um, and the hackathon lasts for 6 weeks. So we're definitely looking for like more robust projects, like projects that can like, we also want to give like a lot of money too, because I think there's a difference between like a hackathon that lasts 2 days and then people just join teams and then they disappear and they're like cool because they like exemplify new use cases, but never really go past the hackathon. And I think that's why, number one, the prize pool is really big. Number two, there's like a longer time period. Number three, actually, so there's a Linea prize specifically. We are awarding bonus points for integrating developer tooling because just building an app on Linea is very boring. It's not powerful unless you have like projects like Celer. So definitely encourage you guys to register. Our opening ceremony is this Thursday, I think, July 6th. But you can register throughout the entire 2 months. But yeah, I think that's all I have to say. This was really insightful. Thank you super much. Are you going to be in Paris at all?
Oh, yeah, I'm not in Paris personally,
Okay.
but I think our CTO is actually in Paris for ECC, and he would be giving a talk. But that's more on the other aspect of our project, which some people might know. Like we are also expanding into the area of ZK, which like Linear's obviously like expert in, and we're like also expanding into like exploring like what we can do within the zk space, and we going to talk about like our new effort called brevis.network, which is a like zk based data attestation. So it's like less about cross-chain, but we do have a already like a demo of a cross-chain bridge built with zk based light client verification. So like the cBridge I talked about was it's more so for example like a validator is like voting for like to verify a cross-chain a cross-chain transaction. But for our new like zk bridge, I mean, it's more of a tech demo than like actual product, but that thing is based on like a snark based like client verification. So technically, it's like more what we call like trustless, or like a more like less trust based. Like you don't have to trust any third party. You can always like you believe in math, and like that it just like that the math does the magic verification for you. Yeah, so that is the thing we're gonna be talking about at ETHCC, and I think our CTO is going to give a talk on that. Yeah.
Okay.
Mhm.
Yeah, very cool. Yeah, with regards to Paris, definitely Linea will also be there. We have two events. So we have a happy hour we're hosting, just to kind of celebrate Linea. And then we have another piece called Linea Unconference, which is kind of more of like a developer focused event, but also for the community. I don't know. You tell me if this is crazy. I'm organizing an unconference of not panels. Maybe it's like too kitschy, but like I think the
Well, they
idea.
cancel out, right? You have like unconference and knock, so it's
Yeah,
actually it's
yeah, yeah.
conference and panel.
I mean, because like I think my vibe is like conferences are really cool. You get to meet like super smart people like you, right? But it ends up being like you sit and just listen to a lot of people. So I
Yeah.
think when I think like community event vibes, I was going for a not panel. So
Hmm.
like yeah, we'll still have like subject matter experts there, but I think
Hmm.
the idea is more audience participation, them adding their thoughts, keeping it like no stage. We're all on the same level.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah, and I think there's a part of it too. So those will both be hosted on July 19th. The registration links are up. I don't have the links for them. I'll post them on Twitter later. But they're for the unconference, there's going to be 2 hours of like VC office hours. So we have
Hmm.
VCs coming in specifically for the Linea ecosystem to like talk about your projects, talk about what cool things, what kind of cool cross chain, uh, what one click multi-chain dApps you're building,
Sounds
and
good.
various things. So keep an eye out for that. I think that's the end of my announcements. Thank you so much, Michael, for joining. This was super interesting.
Thank
Um,
you.
yeah, yeah, awesome. So have a good rest of your day. I don't know if it's like nighttime for you or where you're based, but
It's a
uh
daytime for for
oh,
me.
it's daytime? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. Same. I don't know, because sometimes I like talk to people who are in like Australia or like, you know,
Yeah. It's
Asia, and I'm just like, yeah, thanks for joining so late. But okay,
it's a
awesome.
decentralized world. It's
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
we still have to work with time, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool. Well, thanks again. I'm gonna end the stream.
Mhm.
Goodbye, Linea community. Goodbye, Michael.
Thanks again.
This is fun.